Today we're covering the most important element of speaking with a feminine voice as a trans woman. When we say that a voice that's been shaped by testosterone sounds male, we're saying it has a masculine timbre. This timbre results from a number of anatomical factors, but one of the most important is the height of the larynx. The larynx, also known as the voice box, holds the vocal cords, also called the vocal folds. This is where your voice comes from. In cis men, the larynx sits about halfway down the throat. In cis women, it sits roughly behind the chin, up at the top of the trachea. Now, this gives the male voice more room to resonate. Unfortunately, that means for us trans women, it's kind of difficult to get rid of that boom and fix the timbre. We can counter this difficulty by raising our larynx to speak. This is difficult to learn. We don't generally do this in day-to-day life, so it involves muscles we're unfamiliar with. Worse yet, there's lots of misinformation online from well-meaning people who recommend a method that will do nothing but frustrate you. What they recommend is the swallow method. The idea is that because the larynx rises automatically when we swallow, that you should be able to learn to control it by swallowing and then trying to hold it in place. This doesn't work. Swallowing is a complex process that can't be frozen halfway through. The brain triggers the action, and then the body continues it reflexively until it's finished. And even if you could freeze it halfway through, when you swallow, much more is happening than just your larynx raising. For example, as your larynx goes up, the epiglottis, that's this bit here, also folds over the trachea to prevent food from going down your airway. Needless to say, a closed airway isn't really compatible with speech. Here's a much easier way to control your larynx. It's called the big dog, little dog exercise. First, pant like a big sloppy dog. You want to sound like the biggest dog you can, a real Marmaduke. Then start making the dog smaller and smaller until you sound more like a purse puppy. What's happening here is you're starting with your larynx low, and as the dog shrinks, your larynx gets higher. An important pitfall to avoid. We're trying to reach the larynx here. You may be tempted to use your tongue or mouth to squeeze the sound. It's a valid technique for other uses, maybe not as strong, but mouth or tongue involvement will prevent you from getting any good out of this exercise. Freeze all of your vocal posture except your throat. Also, don't hyperventilate. Once you understand the exercise, you can do it in one continuous breath. Now, before I get to the fun part, I need to give you some notes on safety. The muscles that raise your larynx are usually only used for swallowing. That means that in most people, they're a tad bit atrophied and not really prepared for continuous use. It may be tempting after a big breakthrough to practice continually, but be sure to give your voice some rest. Don't practice through pain. If you're feeling sore, take a break. Give your voice some rest. Drink water to keep your throat soothed. If you're a little dehydrated, and I do mean a little, it can get a little harder to make this whole thing work. Now, to the fun part. Right now, my larynx is low. Big dog. But, watch this. Now my larynx is high, and because it's high, the full range of my pitch is not actually available to me. The lower register is cut off. And my timbre, more importantly, is feminine. Be careful when you start speaking not to immediately drop the larynx that you've just learned to lift. It's kind of alliterative, isn't it? But if it's not up when you start speaking, it's not going to help you. I hope you find this technique as helpful as I did. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications because my next video will cover the basics of inflection.